On to the last principle, shall we? This is the really weird one. Human alternatives, consideration, and fallback. You should be able to opt out where appropriate and have access to a person who can quickly consider and remedy problems you encounter. You should be able to opt out from an automated system in favor of a human alternative where appropriate.
If only.
Yeah, but what does that mean? That means every single AI system, which is going to be generating a form of sentience at some point, has a right to a human alternative. So that means human beings will be co-signed to the independent AI algorithms. Now, whether or not that means you're in a position of updating, monitoring, ensuring the right data goes in, that's fine. But what happens when an AI gains sentience? Does that relationship invert and you become its pet? So AIs get rights to humans. We don't get rights to much. Actually, you get entitlements if you're a certain minority community to algorithmically determined equitable outcomes. But if you're a white guy, you get sweet sod all other than the promise of immiseration. But if you're a white guy, you might get a promise of being an AI's pet.
So, not to accidentally do an impression of Kathy Newman, but so what you're saying is here that the people who are going to be overseeing the AI's activities and providing redress of grievance if someone doesn't like the outcome in which the AI has enforced will eventually not be able to compete with the AI itself. That's pretty much what you're saying, isn't it?
So the intention of the bill is to offer you a human alternative, like if you go to a customer service chatbot and they say, would you want me to put you through to a provider? But what happens when the AI actually outpaces human intellect just through raw computing power? That relationship gets inverted. And what happens when our government system is run entirely on the AI and policies are generated by the AI? Then why would the AI generate a policy which keeps humans as supreme?
It wouldn't.
Exactly.
It's inefficient.
So the Biden administration has created the legal framework for the AI to take over us, specifically us. The American public deserves the assurance that when rights, opportunities, or access are meaningfully at stake, and there is a reasonable expectation of an alternative to an automated system, they can conveniently opt out of an automated system and will not be disadvantaged for that choice. In addition to being able to opt out and use a human alternative, the American public deserves a human fallback system in the event that an automated system fails or causes harm. And then immediately goes on to, in the criminal justice system, employment, education, healthcare, and other sensitive domains, automated decisions are used for many purposes, from pre-trial risk assessments and parole decisions to technology that can help doctors diagnose disease. Absent appropriate safeguards, these technologies can lead to unfair, inaccurate, or dangerous outcomes. These sensitive domains require extra protections, and it is critically important that there is extensive human oversight in such settings. So given we've just spoken about the relationship between human and AI inverting to us being a subservient position, they've just said we're going to put the AI in charge of our prison systems. Yeah. That's really unsettling. So mass algorithmic incarceration, initially to create equity among the prison population, either by algorithmic determination of who should be let out increasingly, or who should receive harsher jail penalties if you commit pettier crimes and you're white, or it just decides to lock us all up.
Yeah, a slight error in code could end up with AI just enslaving humanity because it sees it as more efficient.
Especially if you live in that Saudi Arabian line where you have nowhere to escape through, everything is run algorithmically, including the delivery of your food or the ability to open your own pod door. There is actually going to be no way out of these 15-minute cities they create. And they call them 15-minute smart cities, not only because you're meant to be walking everywhere and you're allowed to get public transport only if the AI system and digital currency allows you to, but also because you are meant to live in this small satellite state, get all you want and need. But what happens when you try to leave it? And then every single smart city is synced up into an international grid and they decide you're verboten. You won't even be exiled. Like you can't even move to a town over and restart your new life. It's not like in the 50s where if you had a fight with your wife, you could pop down to a shop for a pack of cigarettes, move a town over and have a whole new life. This is persona non grata from every place in the world. Yeah.
Horrifying.
The American people deserve reassurance that such procedures are in place to protect their rights, opportunities, and access. People make mistakes, and a human alternative or fallback mechanism will not always have the right answer, but they serve as an important check on the power and validity of automated systems. So they're saying that, of course, humanity is not beyond reproach, but neither are AI. Well, try saying that 10 times when you're drunk. But when the AI believe they're beyond reproach, then suddenly human fallibility becomes a liability and they take us out of the decision-making process. An example for what needs AI oversight An automated signature matching system is used as part of the voting process in many parts of the country to determine whether the signature on a mail-in ballot matches the signature on file. A human curing process, which helps voters confirm their signatures and correct other voting mistakes, is important to ensure all votes are counted, and it is already standard practice in much of the country for both an election official and the voter to have the opportunity to review and correct any such issues. So, they're saying that your voting process will be increasingly digitized, obviously synced up with your digital citizen's ID, and the AI will determine whether or not your vote is valid.
Great.
So all of the special interest groups who think the Republicans are literal Nazis, well, what's to stop them just secretly discounting every Republican's vote and creating a one-party state?
It doesn't look like there's much.
No, and I'm sorry, I know I'm subjecting you to what seems like obvious answers, but I was just reading through all of this and I was like, right, it gets increasingly worse and worse. This is the last principle they finish on, by the way, so a lot of people would have read bits and pieces of this and wouldn't have got to point 5. Point 5 is the scariest bit. Why are human interventions needed? They need to be proportionate. The availability of human consideration and fallback, along with the associated training and safeguards against human bias, should be proportionate to the potential of the automated system to meaningfully impact rights, opportunities, and access. Automated systems that have greater control over outcomes, provide input to high-stakes decisions, relate to sensitive domains, or otherwise have greater potential to meaningfully impact rights, opportunities, or access, should have greater availability, e.g. staffing, and oversight of human consideration and fallback mechanisms. So the more impactful they are, the more humans the AI itself is entitled to. So the greater the system, like the prison population, for example, the greater the amount of people it will have under its thrall when it eventually becomes the more intelligent party. And then there are other considerations of the government to include: accessibility, convenience, timeliness, equity, of course, efficacy, and the regularity of maintenance. So let's go on to the conclusion, shall we?
Go right ahead. How can it get any worse?
It ends with, consider together the 5 principles and associated practices of the Blueprint for AI Bill of Rights form an overlapping set of backstops against potential harms. This purposefully overlapping framework, when taken as a whole, forms a blueprint to help protect the public from harm. The measures taken to realise the vision set forward in this framework should be proportionate with the extent and nature of the harm or risk of harm to people's rights, opportunities, and access. So it's a banality that doesn't actually account for any of the problems that we can both foresee here about AI itself superseding human intelligence. So there's a massive gaping hole, like I said earlier about the forest fire in the trees, about whether or not we will be displaced by the technology we've created. So I can't actually tell here whether or not this is incompetence, could well be, especially because it's written so poorly, or actual malevolence where they want the AI to run out of control, and then we can take our hands off, and much like Nick Land's eventual dystopia of the machines are creating things long after human beings actually exist, the machine is just generating auto-equity with the banality of evil to individual human suffering, and the individual human beings are no longer morally culpable for carrying out the mob devouring one person to utilitarianly divide up their assets. They can just say, it's the machine's fault. Don't blame me that I'm rich just because I'm black.
That's harrowing.
Yes.
To watch the full video, please become a premium member at lotuseaters.com.